Franchise growth, it's not about selling franchises. It's about creating enterprise value, getting the flywheel spinning. And we're going to talk about a deep dive why fast franchise sales growth, it's fool's gold. We're going to discuss a game plan on how to build enterprise value and a valuable franchise system. And everyone should know I'm here with my friend Nick Powles. And guys, we're gonna let's have a candid conversation today. Here are the goals for this conversation. Number one, if you're growing your franchise system or thinking of franchising your business, think long-term, 5-year growth strategy, creating enterprise value, and honoring your most important goal, which is making your franchisees profitable and helping align their expectations with what your franchise offers. But at a deeper level, in a world with AI, paid marketing, franchise sales organizations, franchise brokers, franchisors have a lot of stress and pressure. You want to sell franchises, but how do you grow the right way? And is franchise growth, fast franchise growth, is it fool's gold? Is it a pathway for making everyone else profitable, diluting your initial franchise fees, undercapitalizing your franchise system? And of course, the answer is going to be on a middle ground. And Nick, I'm looking forward to a candid conversation on these points.
Let's go.
Well, to start off, I mean, am I clear about the task? Or let me phrase it this way. Guys, we see franchise brands that scale and grow. We see our clients exit to private equity. We see their vehicles throughout the country. They're national. And it seems like they grew overnight or had this accelerated or fast franchise growth. But there's a deeper story there. People don't realize the earlier years. They franchise their business, years 1, 2, 3, 4, slow franchise growth, but it's methodical. You know, they start with pioneering franchisees. They keep building out systems, keep improving systems and performance. And many times I'll be at conferences with our clients at that early stage. Brokers don't care about them. Franchise sales organizations don't care, but they tend to their house. They make their pioneering franchisees profitable. They build their systems. They capitalize their company, and then they get discovered as overnight brands, and they're not. And so I think too many new franchisors get caught up on the fast franchise growth track, and I think it leads to a wrong pathway. Nick, how would you frame what your experiences are on this and how you see it?
It's a very complex statement, and there is absolutely a pathway to success. So let me see if I can break this down. There's a brand that you worked with that had a tremendous exit. Perception was they grew very, very quickly through the broker network. The reality is they got up to 30-ish units. They had cash flow that was coming in off of those units. They operated corporate units to build additional cash flow so that when they turned up sales, they had enough financial wherewithal to support the franchisees and do what is the most important part of franchise growth and sales, which is expectation setting. So what happens is, I've used this example before, we had a client franchise their business because there's a million consultants that will franchise the business. I said, what's winning? They said, we would like to do somewhere in the range of 5 to 10 units in the next year. I said, okay, you have 3 units now. They did $1.5 million AUVs with net profitability at under 10%. I said, well, here's the issue. Great that you guys are able to take $150,000 out of each of these. 150,000 times 3 is $450,000. That's a lot of money. I go, but to a franchisee, if they perform at your numbers with their fees, they're going to walk away with like 20 grand. And so you weren't ever franchisable. And so that's an example of a brand that had an expectation. We're going to go on this big, fast growth pattern, but never perfected their unit level economics. And so growing fast is a great idea if you have the two things, which is capital reserved to support the franchisee to do the other thing, which is give the support to drive those AUVs up to above average so that their expectations are met. And so it's not that fast growth is wrong. It's that unfortunately the fast growth companies prey on emerging brands that can't do either one of those. At the end of the day, in a broker network deal, there's only in that scenario, if there's an FSO and a broker, The only two companies that make money are the brokerage and the FSO. And so there's no capital going over to the franchisor. And if they're undercapitalized, the odds of supporting a franchisee through expectations is next to nothing.
A bunch of points here, Nick, and I want to break this down into a success framework, right? I think I have an idea of, based on some of your comments, right? And also a warning. Like, I've seen brands struggle to sell franchises, and they're working with other organizations and stuff. And behind the scenes, and not a client, I'm looking under the hood. I'm like, you may be lucky you haven't sold, because your unit economics don't even make sense for you as a franchisor. But let's build a success framework here. My point of view is there's no such thing as fast franchise sales growth. And it's all about building a foundation. What looks fast, you're just seeing the end result. Because one thing we talk to our clients about often is slow growth is fast growth, right? It's that building phase of you become a franchise, your first 1, 2, 3 years, building foundations, like planting seeds. It takes time to grow, build a validation base, build the support, and then you could accelerate sales to a certain extent. So from a franchise success framework, I think a couple of fundamentals I want to talk about, which is new franchisor, I enter the franchise world. I strongly recommend look at your growth phase as an initial 5-year growth strategy. Look at the process of becoming a franchisor as the first 24 months, first 2 years, building a foundation. And that foundation, sure, you have your FDD, become a franchisor, but take the next 12, 24 months to build foundation, pioneering franchisees and system there, versus just jumping into broker networks or spending money randomly on paid advertising. So for me, your first 24 months, you become a franchisor in 90 to 120 days. Maybe you track those first 2 or 3 pioneering franchisees organically, over support them, and build that seasoned foundation over the 24-month period. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I feel great about it, but here's the thing. How many times did your parents tell you not to do something and you went and did it?
Well, and in this case, what I'll see typically is even, and we have, and again, the brands you mentioned that exited at a very high level, that's what they did. In fact, they did that over 4 years.
Yeah, but you could shake someone. Here's the larger unspoken issue in franchising. There is a giant lack of integrity by businesses that over-index on taking cash. And this lack of integrity means it might feel like it's real. It could be you telling me, Nick, man, we could explode your brand. You don't have to worry about those things. I've done this for 26 brands and I've sold 7 billion franchises. And so we have an integrity issue. And then the reality is, like, some of these brands, I could start actually naming names of brands that didn't listen to the advice, went and sold franchises because the broker network is also lacks integrity and sells based on who pays them the highest commission. Not whether a franchisee is a perfect match or not. And then you have 2 things. You've oversold and you can't support, and you've oversold to the wrong people, and it implodes in an ugly way. And here the broker walks away, they have the money in the pocket, and the FSO walks away and they have the money in the pocket. And so we could point to all these stories, but it goes back to my statement of how many times did your parent tell you not to do something? You did it because you're like, but I know better. And if the candy man in that van is like, but it's okay to come into my candy van as a stranger, it still happens, even though we know we shouldn't take candy from strangers. And so, like, it's all there, but unfortunately, we could continue to do these videos. The brands have to start cutting the deck.
Well, let me just say this. Let's assume the intentions, or where some, initial brands are getting advice. Let's assume everyone has good intentions, but maybe the advice is not the right advice. And for everyone, we're building our success framework. So here's the advice. When you do become that initial franchisor, or if you're already a brand and you're struggling a little, reset. The knee-jerk reaction is always to reach for the sale, maybe go to another broker conference, spend more money on certain marketing, and try to generate the sale. We've seen from our FranCamp conferences, which, by the way, if you haven't been to it, next one's coming up, check out FranCamp conference. But what we've seen in the data from FranCamp is when emerging brands, and all of us as business owners, approach growth strategy, we get it wrong. We get the pyramid wrong. We focus first on sales and then last on leadership, brand. And you really need to invert your strategy, which is focus on your leadership goals, focus on that brand story, focus on the right positioning for the franchisee and those genuine conversations. And only later down the line do you get to that sales activity, right? So I think step number one in the seasoning process, understand what your brand's about, understand what the promises you're making to franchisees. Make sure you could deliver on it and demonstrate how you deliver on it. You're going to sell more by that integrity than attending conferences or promoting to more brokers or running more ads or going to portal leads. You agree, Nick?
I agree. However, that's not foolproof. I can think of a brand instantly when you're saying this that did all those elements, then went into the broker network without growing organically, and then ran into cash flow issues in a large way and had to sell a greater percentage than they should have for the valuation of the potential valuation of their business that now put them backwards. So if I'm creating the best practice, it's do that, but you have to get beyond 5 units organically before you go into the broker network.
Perfect. I love that, right? So far, if we're piecing together the success framework, number one, you're going to season your franchise offering over those first 12 months and really solidify what you are, your purpose in a genuine way. 2, before you think of expanding sales outbound in a very strategic way or brokers and other avenues, Nick's advice, which I agree 100%, is build your organic base of franchisees, right? What sells franchises are existing franchisee validation. Don't go running around to other, sales channels unless you first have demonstrated your proof of concept. When Nick is saying your first 5 franchisees organically, meaning people that know you, your brand, come into contact with it, make them successful before you focus on that fast franchise growth and these other strategies. Agreed?
Total alignment.
So we got seasoning. We have building your validation base, right? Proving your concept and being genuine. What's next on this growth strategy?
You're saying before you go into fast growth?
Yeah, before whatever someone deems fast growth.
Well, here I'll give you another example. We have a client. I would still call them a unicorn brand. They've not had a sales issue, and they've not had an opening issue. They are well capitalized, and they grew very, very, very quickly. Last year, pressure tested them on openings. Fascinating. We had a deep discussion about this, and their issue is no longer selling franchises. It's now turning into supporting and doing it again. And so I would say on the fast growth, whether you're a service brand or restaurant brand, there's a number, whether it's 10 franchises, whether it's 25, whether it's 100, where you have to reset and restart and become a startup again, because you now have to re-onboard a different set of staff for supporting that franchisee. And so the next level is, okay, now we've turned it on. It's not about building up your lifestyle yet with the cash. It's about starting to prep for this next hill that you can now deploy the capital to hire the right people to now support the infrastructure that you've now built up because of franchise sales. Because the selling is one thing, the openings are the next, the success of those franchisees aligned to the expectations is the next one, and then the scale of those franchisees is the final one. And so each of those areas is going to require a different viewpoint to make sure that you have a chance of building one of these amazing businesses.
I love that point. So if I were going to put a label on this, right? Support infrastructure, sustainable unit economics, right? So we franchised, seasoned the franchise offering in terms of positioning, and built a validation base, made franchisees successful. And Nick, your advice next, which I think is so critical, is really getting the unit economics right and the scalability right. Meaning, number one, are your unit economics as a franchisor, are they scalable? What do they look like when they're ramping up? Most important, to Nick's point, are you going to have the capital to support, open, and train your next level of franchisees the right way? Right? So it's economic and support infrastructure as a franchisor. And I think that's critical, Nick, because that's where I get nervous as an attorney, right? As a franchise, we've had clients upset with us because they were focused on this rapid growth strategy and they're working with other organizations. And so we don't get involved in it. But, the sales and the fast franchise sales sounds interesting. But then the problem is you're actually depleting your cash flow because money is going out the door to sales organizations, brokers, media, whatever it is. So you're taking on an obligation of a new franchisee. You need the support infrastructure, train them, open them, keep them on track. You're into a cash flow deficit at a vulnerable stage as a franchise system.
I think the other big mistake that franchisors make along that path is they don't create separate buckets for B2B and B2C. And so selling a franchise has many legs to it, but you have selling a franchise, the construct of how you present your business opportunity to franchise buyers. And then you have in the onboarding and the marketing and the sales structure, the B2C side of how much energy is needed here. And so like one point that I constantly beat up in FDDs is in item 7, the grand opening amount. And I say, reshape the grand opening to be the whole first year so that we're setting expectations and we're not blindsiding the franchisee when their sales are not performing at system average. So when you say deploy more capital, they're not panicking because the first thing you cut when sales are not working is marketing. And I say that because there's a construct of an FDD to sell a franchise, and then there's a construct of an FDD to create high unit level economic performing franchisees. And so if you look at that item 7 and you're like, yeah, but then we won't be a low cost franchise. Mm-hmm. But low cost franchise might be cutting the legs out of you being a high performing unit level economic franchise later on. And so you have to divide those buckets as a part of your sales structure so that you bring on the right franchisees, because we're in the expectation business, and oftentimes those two elements are not separated.
Yeah, Nick, and that gets to an important point that you bring up often, right? So we talked about building the economic support, right? Having the right economics and support for those franchisees. To your point, and something you discuss often, which is the value of a successful franchisee over the value of a sale. Right. So all of a sudden now you get involved in these sales channels. Your primary focus becomes selling franchises. You view your wins and losses by how many franchise agreements you signed. You're possibly going cash deficits because you're spending more money on outbound sales than anything else, but you're taking on big obligations. You start chasing franchise sales versus, again, I'll say the slow franchise growth, which is faster than fast franchise growth, rather than just focusing on those validation base and that next level of franchisees and possibly saying we're going to pause or go very slow with franchises, because if we make our franchisees successful and they increase their sales, we are increasing our royalties, we are increasing our cash flow, we are enhancing our validation for future franchise sales, we're creating a winning formula. And we're getting that flywheel to start spinning.
Think of a client, get it in your head, a client that came to your law firm at a low starting point, project base or retainer. Now take that same client and think about similar client that is scaled and is worth a lot more to your business. Why did they scale up their relationship with your business?
Because they were growing, right?
And your support.
Oh, no question about it. The support, the infrastructure.
Right. So you made them believe you hit their expectations. They start small. That's the opening of a franchise. You hit their expectations, your support and infrastructure. You continued to perform and do what you said you were going to do, which scales the client relationship within the law firm. It's perfect. It's so simple. Franchisors, unfortunately, don't look at it the same way. You bring on a franchisee through sales who you help support so that they grow, which in turn, the growth of because we are paid. Franchising has two main payments to the franchisor. Point of sale, we sold a franchise, we get a franchise fee. Ongoing royalties that continues to grow as the business grows, and it's based on the success of the franchisee. And this is why it blows my mind how many franchisors spend so much energy on selling franchises and so little energy on supporting those franchisees to help them they did not create a franchise. These are not entrepreneurs in the traditional sense. These are entrepreneurial people who are following the system that they believed in because you sold them on your vision, and they don't put the time and energy to increase this energy, which in turn, if those sales go up, that franchisee validates. If the success of your clients go up, they tell other franchisors to hire your law firm. None of this is rocket science. But unfortunately, we don't separate out the revenue streams of franchisee income and ongoing royalty. Usually franchise sales is only celebrated at the beginning part, not at the end part. We only construct businesses to sell franchises, not to perform at optimum level on unit level economics. And so, but this is all simple and it's all fixable. So there are brands, there's a brand that I'm talking to, a friend of ours right now, that I said, stop franchising. Your unit level economics are not ready for it. And you're overspending on the broker networks, hoping that they're going to solve the problem by selling franchises. But you're actually creating the larger problem because you're going to sign franchisees who can't perform because you don't know how to engineer good performance, which in turn is going to create angry franchisees, which is going to hurt validation, which means you will never grow to the level that you want. And even if you grow fast, because the brokers are excited about how much cash you're paying them to go convince a poor franchisee to buy your system, they won't be successful and your business won't scale and it won't exit.
Well, and Nick, from the franchisor perspective, you use the analogy of our firm. Also when we're speaking with potential clients, we're evaluating the founder and management team, and not from a negative perspective. If we don't feel like they're very serious and competent, we'll decline representation because our time has value. Getting to the franchisor analogy too, in the sales cycle, some of the best deals they could possibly make are going to be the ones they turn down, right? The franchisees that aren't a good fit. And I think that gets all mixed up in this fast franchise growth framework that causes problems along the way. But I think a big takeaway, again, if we're talking about, and again, we see it in FranCamp often, just like the planning is sometimes reverse, I think here the economic incentives or valuation is wrong. It's being driven by sales and franchise fees versus sustainable long-term royalty streams, right?
I got an email today. This is top of mind. We have a prospective client. They've been a prospective client for a long time. They are constantly chasing and trying things out on franchise sales. Had a great conversation with them. They're like, I think we're finally ready to listen to you. I said, that's great. I'll send follow-up notes. They said we met a local franchisor that has scaled multiple businesses and has exited them. And they may help us grow our business and exit too. First of all, I know who it is, but I'm like, boy, this is going to be their fourth time throwing money at something that's not going to work, of someone that lacks integrity, that is just going to take their money. And so I wrote 2 emails. First one I deleted. The first one was like, hey, if you want to talk through this, I'm happy to do it because I can give you some insight that might protect you and save you making another mistake. I was like, you know what? We're on mistake 4. I can't shake them anymore. They're going to have to go make the mistake. So I said, I deleted that and wrote, if you want advice, let me know. Because I was like, I can only help people that want to be helped. And if you're constantly chasing this dream of selling fast franchises, call Charles and I when you fail again.
Nick, I like what we've uncovered here, right? In terms of development, seasoning, building validation base of organic franchisees, building economic support infrastructure, and reverse engineering the unit economics, right? Royalty first, franchise fees second. Let's talk about some hypotheticals so we could apply these formulas, right? I'm going to present a couple of situations that a franchisor may be experiencing or struggling with. We'll focus on different stages. Based on that framework, give me a diagnosis, right? Number 1, I'll call it, I've launched but failure to launch. We've seen it at our FranCamp conferences. Franchisors will come, hey, I franchised 2 years ago. I worked to a certain company. I believed I have the whole blueprint. I haven't sold any franchises. I'm thinking now of joining this group or doing X, Y, and Z. How would you start diagnosing the situation there?
Cost to get in, how much you can make. Give me those answers. And if I took every dollar, and now I got to extract royalty and make sure we're sound.
So let's pause there. No, but Nick, that's important. So your first diagnosis is, number 1, do your unit economics make sense? And if they do, are they presented the right way?
Do you have a business?
Do they align with your investment?
Do you have a business? Period. Nobody does that. Do you have a business? And then this is out of last FranCamp, which I love this line. I've always said, if you could take every dime out of this business over the first 3 years, let's say you do $100,000 in year 1, 200 in year 2, 500 in year 3, and all the money that drops to the bottom line, could I pay off my initial investment with all that money? If the answer is yes, we have a viable business. Now, a viable business could be aligned to someone who aligns financially, from financially qualified standpoint, to align to your business that can actually win and scale. If it's above 3 years, then it's a hobby. It's not a business. And so if the brand's there and they say, Nick, we've been trying, we're doing everything you say. How much does it cost to get in? No bullshit. And how much can I make? No bullshit. You give me those answers and I will tell you whether you're ready for step 2.
And again, diagnosing the issue, I would say for that type of franchisor, we would typically see they haven't engaged in that type of evaluation. They actually may have good unit economics. These things may align, but they went through sort of a homogenized franchising process, and there's no clarity on who they're a good fit for or brand positioning. So either they don't have the numbers or they didn't position the brand the right way. That's level 1. Let's go to another level. Franchisor has 4 franchisees. They're in year 3 of their journey. Brokers, third-party sales, not really interested. Unit economics is starting to look good. For me, I would say that's a good situation, not a negative, but what would you be evaluating there? Would it be, hey, stay the course, you're on the right track? Or what are some things you tell them focus on?
First question immediately, and I'm playing through the hypotheticals in like where this is real. What's your lifestyle look like? Where does this money that comes into the business go? And I want to know those answers. Are you taking the funds that your early success, and are you taking more vacations and buying more homes? Or are you taking the money and reinvesting into the organization? So what's your lifestyle look like? And what's happening with this money? Secondly, who is your last hire, and how much did you pay them in salary, and what did they accomplish before you decided to pay them that salary? So I'm looking at 2 things: mindset of reinvestment and willingness to invest in people that could eventually have impact back to the franchisees that they bring in. If either of those turn in the wrong direction, then you can stay the course, but don't come to me and say, I have a dream of selling 10 franchises next year. You just won't. Dreams don't magically happen. Cash drives the dreams.
I love that approach. I think it's great insight. So I'm not even going to comment more on it. Next situation. What appears to be a great brand, but it's very new to franchising. Appears to have great unit economics. Enters broker groups, working with franchise sales organizations, and is scaling up sales quickly. What's your insight there?
It's going to be similar. I would say, how much cash do you have to invest in the business? Because scaling fast, again, like selling franchise is only one element of a successful franchise. And so where is this cash going? So that'd be one. And do you even have cash to support these franchisees? If you don't, what's your plan to go get that cash? Are you going to raise and how are you evaluating the business? And if you can't go find that cash, I'm gonna be like, look, you have a very positive thing. You figured out that you are sellable within the broker system. Push pause for 6 months, because you know that you could turn it. If you're in there once and it worked, you can turn it on later and it'll work again. Push pause, take all the money that you were going to deploy back into the brokers and put it back into making these franchisees successful in whatever it takes. And then 6 months from now, go ahead and push play again and watch what happens.
Yeah, and we've both. It was an interesting experience, mutual client, mutual acquaintance. When she decided her franchise sales were accelerating and growing, and she decided to put a pause on all franchise sales to focus on support, right? And it resulted in even more sales later on and bigger evaluation. I guess overall, I think franchisors, they get trapped in the evaluating success through number of units sold and franchise fees, when they really need to be evaluating enterprise value, longevity, and franchisee success. And I think that's the type of advice every emerging and established franchisor needs to hear. And if they're experiencing frustration on sales and looking for new initiatives or vendors, that could be great too. But I can tell you need to look within and you need to have that honest assessment of your primary goal in making franchisees successful. Nick, I want to go into one other thing here. Guys, we never promote anything, but like our Frank Camp conference is coming up. If you get an opportunity, you should consider joining us. So everyone watching, whether our next Frank Camp conference is coming up in June, Nick, in terms of the content we've been working on for the next Frank Camp, playbooks, what's the focus for the June 2026 Frank Camp event? And if you're watching this video after it, look for the future ones. go to francampgrowth.com. But for everyone watching this video, what's on agenda for our next FranCamp event?
The beauty of franchising back in 2008 is the way that you marketed your franchise were portals, trade shows, and PR. That was really it. There's no Google ads. There's nothing else. That was a simple time to sell franchise. In today's world, it's gotten more complex. And now with the birth of AI and the way that AI works for the candidate search, AI is the franchise broker of tomorrow. Great statement, great line, but brands don't know what to do with that information. We're going to unpack that, give a real playbook on how you actually set your AI story so that the AI tools that exist will sell and promote you on behalf of you when the candidate is engaging with the new broker of tomorrow, which is their AI agent that is answering their questions. Right now, 99% of brands are not prepared for this moment. We're going to prepare you for that.
Yeah. And so, guys, consistent with this theme and topic, the world's changing and the opportunities and power, it's shifting to you as a brand. And so we're going to focus on that in FranCamp. Nick, I feel good. So I'm going to end off with this. I believe fast franchise sales growth, it's fool's gold. Stop wasting the energy and the shovels on the wrong patches of dirt, because we need to focus on long-term enterprise value.